to the cloud.
Oh, got it.
Got it.
So today on the Plant Cutting Podcast, we have Lora Galora, and we've both known Lora since about the same time that we met Amanda Breeze, who we interviewed a little while ago, because they're both in the Rail Yard Ghosts, and we've had fun like traveling around, playing shows and doing all sorts of stuff. So that's how we met, and we're gonna talk about this new deck that you put out, a divination deck called Hobomancy, which is really sweet. And you're doing a limited edition of it, first edition, all about your, making the booklets by hand and everything. It's really amazing. I think it'd be fun to get into it. But so you also are kind of a plant person and into magic and divination and traveling. But I guess this is primarily about like magic and divination. So and also you have a really interesting backstory. So how did you get into the path of magic?
The path of magic started practically. When I was a kid, I was taking acting classes from a really inspiring teacher named Heather Axelrod. And at the age of 11 years old, I was cast as the young Nicole Kidman in the movie Practical Magic.
Wow.
And remember it came out and I was talking with one of my friends and my friend was like, Lora, you're a witch. Oh, I am a witch.
That resonates.
And so I just embraced it and rolled with it from there.
That's really really cool.
We just found out about that today. We were like looking at your website and it was like, oh, what?
Yep.
It's probably like I think it's like the most famous like witch.
Yeah, definitely.
At least in our generation. Yeah.
I got lucky, I guess.
Yeah. So, really? But you didn't follow the acting path, did you? I mean,
no, I didn't. It's true. I tried to, like, right after college, I moved to LA for a year. But it was just really obvious after a year of living in LA that was not the place for me to be. Just, kind of a superficial vibe. And and so I kind of had like a freak out, and one of my friends, not a freak out, but I was just like over it. And one of my friends called me up and was like, we'd been talking in high school about how we always wanted to go to the jungle, travel around the jungle. And he was like, hey, I'm graduating college. You want to go to the jungle with me? And I was like, yes, I do. Cool. I'm ready to leave this place. And so that's like how my traveling life began, which has been a huge part of the past 15 years of my life. So.
Yeah, I mean, when we met you, you were traveling, and I mean, the Rail Yard Ghosts is sort of the epitome of a traveling band.
Yeah, I don't know how many shows we hop trains to get to.
The whole like 10-person band hopping on train.
Would you like hop different trains or like get on the same one?
Oh, far too often we would get on the same one, and there would be like, and then we would get caught.
I feel like that would be hard for like scheduled shows, because when we may have toured a different way, but like we were like, we had like a show every night. And they were each like 4 hours apart, so it was insane. But how did you do that?
I think they were scheduled out slightly. We would have like a day or two, but also just really, adrenaline fueled. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
but yeah, and we definitely would hitchhike too when it was like cutting it close. I remember there was one show we were cutting it so close we wound up taking a taxi to the show because nobody would give us a ride.
No. So where did you travel around? You said you went to South America. Were you mostly traveling around the States, or did you go make it all the way around the world? Like, where have you gone?
Yeah. So that South America trip was was where I started. And
Mhm.
then I got back to the States and started traveling around the States. Like I went to my first rainbow gathering and, met traveler kids.
Uh-huh.
And shortly after started riding trains. And then a couple years in, I met the Real Your Ghosts. They had a big 42-foot long school bus at the time, which was pretty fun. And so we started traveling around that way. Let's see, about 7 years ago, we took a tour through Europe, which was really cool. So that was a cool trip. We started in Ireland, and I made it as far east as Ukraine
Mm.
and far south as Croatia, and I flew back home through Norway. So I got to see a pretty good chunk. And then
Yeah.
one of the coolest trips that I've done that was just like so, I don't even have words for it. It was just amazing. One of my best friends lives in Uganda,
Mm.
which is right next to Kenya for some reference. And I went and visited her for 3 months, and that was amazing.
Aw.
You literally drive down the road and there's like elephants in the backwoods, And that was the first time that I got really into illustrating, like working on a drawing like more than just one day. Like I was taking those 3 months. I think I made about 4 or 5
Mm.
illustrations and during that 3 months. And it was like every day I would like, have my coffee with my friend Merritt and be drawing. And that's really got me onto the illustration path, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Cool.
So that
Yeah. So you made all of the illustrations for this deck.
I sure did.
Right. There's so many. This is
Yeah,
so cool.
they're
There's
so cool.
one,
Yeah. Yeah, there's 64 of them. I think I drew about 75 or so.
Yeah.
But, I love alchemy and that idea of like distillation.
Yeah.
And so I put them through a distillation process to just hone down down to my favorites, down to the ones that felt like they really carried a message.
Right. That's cool.
So what was the process like in creating the deck? Like how did you get the idea for it? And then how did you, bring that down into material reality?
Yeah.
Really. So I was traveling around and just on a whim I bought some index cards. I bought the index cards, and then like a day or two later we rolled into Chicago, and we were down in downtown Chicago, and I just started drawing what I saw.
Mhm.
And that card eventually would become the city card. That was the first card that I started with.
That's what we just were looking at. Cool.
Pull it up. But yeah, there it is. There it is. So yeah, that's based on Chicago. And then actually to finish that card, I went and visited Amanda in Toronto. And we went up to the CN Tower because I was like, I want to see a city from above. It's like I needed the visual to like be able to finish the card. But anyways, tangent. So yeah, I was in Chicago, drew that card, or like started drawing that card. And then I just kept drawing. It was like every morning, you know, we would like wake up, find somewhere to have coffee. And then, you know, while we were like hanging out, talking, I would just draw. And that was like part of my morning ritual.
Cool.
And yeah, that, and I was still really heavily traveling at that time. So those cards came with me from Chicago to New Orleans. I went up to Alaska. They made it as far down south as Guatemala. Just down all around. And in several modes of travel as well. So there's definitely many like train related ones, hence the title Hobomancy.
Yeah.
But I also like did this really cool bicycle tour with my friend Kevin. And there's other folks that joined us too, but that was like through Louisiana and Florida and and I think we went through Mississippi and Alabama too. That was really cool. If anybody feels like bicycle tour, highly suggest it. It's really fun. And then hitchhiking. There's a couple planes in there. Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah.
And bicycles.
And bicycles.
Yep.
And lots of walking. So much walking.
Yeah, they're all walking.
Yeah.
Well, so this actually, a lot of our listeners might not have really any reference for what traveling in that way is like.
Yeah.
Like what is it like to hop a train, to not know where you're going to sleep?
Find a place to drink coffee.
Yeah, like what window into that lifestyle?
Yeah. I'll start by saying it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
The movies make it seem pretty dreamy and romantic, but you know, like you get wet when it rains. But it's also amazing. Like there's something so magical about sleeping on the earth under the stars for so many years. You know, I feel like having that connection with the earth and with nature was so cool. And it really made connecting with plants and with nature just so much more tangible. You know, it was like we call during the last album that we recorded with the Rail Yard Ghosts, we called it Dirt Worship. You know, just having a real connection, and you know, it definitely takes a curious spirit. So like, you know, and an adventurous one, you know, you're kind of like, there's definitely many days where I woke up without any money and I'd be like, all right, well, I guess we have to figure this out. So whether it was like dumpster diving or like busking on the street, playing music on the street to, you know, make enough money for breakfast or whatever it was, and also just like the kindness of strangers,
right,
is also like really incredible.
Yeah.
Also how mean they can be. You like the extremes of humanity when you're like traveling by backpack.
Right.
For sure.
It's true. Yeah, but there's also that like flow state that you get into where, you know, as one problem arises, the solution is literally right around the corner. And
totally,
you're just like, oh, I had this problem, but then like literally the next person I talk to has the solution. I'm in some sort of flow.
Yeah, we would call it presto manifesto.
Nice. Yep. Presto manifesto.
They could use a new pair of shoes, and then you turn the corner and like you're saying, you know, there's just like somebody like put their old shoes on the street or whatever, you know.
Presto manifesto, they're my size.
Yeah, there it is.
So cool. Yeah, there's something about that.
Yeah, there seems to be, there's a looseness when you're traveling. There's more opportunity for random things to happen.
Yeah,
you know, and you know, I never really traveled that much in that way. We toured, you know, that kind of traveling, and I did a lot of busking and like, you know, that kind of thing. But it's definitely a different way of being. You're just like letting the,
Totally.
Yeah.
you're
And
relying on the universe.
Americans are so time obsessed. And that was a really cool thing, was just like losing track of time, like just living outside of time maybe, or
Right.
just like more connected with like the sun and like the natural cycles of what was going on, as opposed to like,
Yeah.
whatever the verse said.
Yeah, it's like
That
you're
was
living in the moment.
cool. Yeah, that was a really cool lesson that I got from my trip to Uganda, because Africans in general are just really, their conception of time is so different.
Hmm.
And it was like, you can say, let's meet at 4 o'clock, and you can pretty much expect them to 6 o'clock is actually what you'll be meeting up. And it was because I got back to the States after that trip, and I was like hanging out at a punk house in Pittsburgh, and nobody had jobs, but it was like every hour or two somebody would ask what time it was. And I was like, you guys, like,
Yeah.
it matter.
That's funny.
Gordon White actually talks about this in his
Realized how time obsessed Americans are. It's
Yeah.
like, you're really, or maybe it's just Western culture in general, but like way more tied to the clock.
Gordon White talks about this in his book Anna.Mystic, his most recent one. And it's like when you're in South America and you're going fishing, when do you meet up? At fishing time.
Yeah.
It's fishing time.
Yeah.
And you catch the train when the train comes.
Right.
when they go busking at busking time.
Yeah.
When does the show start? At punk time.
Dark 30. Yeah. So the closest, like, that's like rainbow time. You're like, dark 30, somewhere around there. But I love those spaces when you're outside of time, when you don't have to have a watch, when you're like, what's next? What's the flow? Where are we going? Let's just look at the map and pick a place. Like that kind of freedom.
Yeah. Cool.
But Isaac had asked you too, like what's like the picture of like a traveling culture, to tell our listeners about that. And I feel like your whole divination deck and the book is such a deep dive into that. And like people, like, I feel like if you're an archaeologist and you're like going back and looking at, different cultures, like you've basically like outlined the whole like traveling culture, of our friends and many people I've never met who are still like our friends in the traveling scene or whatever, but like you've really,
it's fine.
All, it's really cool. And there's lots of
and that was just experiences that I've had. Some of the cards were drawn straight from life. It was like I would be there in the scenario and just jot down like, all right, this is what I see. And then others was from memory. Just like times that have passed. And others, I don't know. Experiences that we share. Kind
of more experiences,
like folk punk, hobo life, hitchhiking, dumpster diving, all of that good stuff. The traveling musician lifestyle.
It is, yeah, totally. You've got a card called Punk House, and like your water card is like a picture of a jug, like a plastic jug of water. And that's like what you need if you're getting on a train.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. But yeah, there's also just like a lot of connection. You can tell that you're really connected to nature too, because a lot of the moral of the story of the card type things, or the DIY section, which we should talk about too, but like a lot of the suggestions that you offer are like sit with the tree and breathe and meditate and connect with nature and like look at the stars and, you know, remember that you do exist outside time, space, and you know, you do connect like in a deep way to nature. And in like a traveling lifestyle, and even just like a modern Western lifestyle, it can be like hard to like make that time space to do that. And so you're really encouraging people to like stop doom scrolling and start connecting with trees. Like that's literally in there.
Really helped me with that because I had made the zine. So the zine, like, or the booklet basically that goes along with it, was a lot me doing a lot of research into positive psychology was probably my number one resource, but then also like stoicism, intuition development, inner child, shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so it was like almost like everyone was journal prompts essentially.
Yeah, right.
And Amanda really helped me like distill my ideas and be like, I had like the concept of like having a story and having an exercise or a DIY.
Mm-hmm.
But she really helped me like clarify the vision to be like, yeah, each story is like really a story from the road to like kind of put people on the card and like, you know, just like a fun imagination space. And then with the DIY, she was like, this is a lot of journaling and writing, which is cool, but maybe like other things too. And I was like, yeah, definitely. Like, not everyone is a hardcore journaler. And so, yeah, and just also important to connect to in different ways. You know, there's so many ways to learn.
Right.
And this is
So I wanted to put in different modes of learning.
Mm-hmm.
This is Amanda Breeze, who we interviewed a couple weeks ago for our listeners who might not.
Yes.
She helped you with all the editing and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, immensely. She was awesome.
Cool.
And I was curious too, if you based it at all on the tarot deck, or if you were inspired at all by tarot, or have you just not like, have you worked with tarot much yourself or?
Yeah, so my acting teacher that I mentioned, Heather, I was probably like 15 years old and I was super interested in tarot, and she was pretty esoteric lady herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went over to her house one afternoon and we like sat down and we went over each card. And so I got like a pretty in-depth introduction to the tarot at a fairly young age.
Yeah.
So I really like tarot, but for me, I'm I'm into practical magic.
Yeah.
You know, like I love tarot, but like sometimes it's like so like mental and etherical and metaphorical, and I'm like, I just tell me to go sit under a tree, you know. Like tell me to go do some things, but I want specifics, or I like tangible things. And I feel like, you know, yeah, tarot is amazing and beautiful and magical, but it's its own thing, and so I just wanted to try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a couple of nods to tarot for sure, like the Traveler and the Moon are definitely nods to tarot.
Mm-hmm. So the Traveler, is that like the Fool?
Yeah.
With the little Dougal dog and the cliff
Little Dougal dog.
That's Hobo sack.
I have a background in tarot, but I just wanted to create something more freeform. Or freeform. I don't know how to say it, but I just wanted it to be, I don't know, the project kind of took on a life of its own, honestly. I don't even know if it was necessarily like a conscious decision.
Wow.
I don't know. It's been such a cool process. Like I've been working on Hobomancy for like, I think it was about 4.5 years before it went to print. So it feels like I just had an art baby, which is pretty cool. And you know, it honestly just feels like it just like came out of me.
Yeah, because you weren't really like some people said about making a divinatory deck with this like end goal in mind, where they're like, okay, I need this many cards. How am I going to get through all these cards? But you kind of did it opposite, where you were like, I made these cards, like I'm making a deck. You're like, it's happening.
So I was making a deck till I got about 20 cards in, and I was like looking at deck cards, and I was like, wait a minute. So
Yeah.
it felt like a very intuitive process.
Yeah. And it's just amazing how much you covered with it too, where it's like all these like important life lessons that, are revealed in the cards, where it's like kind of surprising that it wasn't an intentional process where you were working backwards from like these major life experiences that everyone has, but like you really did cover a lot from
I mean,
so it's amazing.
When you travel, you cover a lot of life lessons. Like traveling is kind of like life with the volume turned up. And so I feel like I've learned so many important things. So the fact that like I'm not surprised that like, it makes sense that they're all in there, because there just have been so many important lessons that I've learned, and like making the cards was a really cool reflection of like times in the past, and yeah, just different, and also with the research that I did, that was like another phase too of being like, all right, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to share? What do I want to help people learn? Like the project definitely has the goal of like, I want to make the world a better place,
Yeah.
And so there was definitely that aim in mind. Like, how do I help heal this broken world? Yeah. Well, it has like a higher goal in mind, but I feel like it came
feel that
intuitively.
Mhm.
So you also like made a new language.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where did this it's like a magical alphabet. Where did that
It does include a magical alphabet.
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
Hobo code. I actually, so that is definitely not an original idea. There are a lot of magical alphabets in the world. First time I ever saw one actually was from Riley Coyote, who is the lead singer of, or not the lead singer, but one of the founding members of Really Your Ghost.
The ringleader.
O'Reilly.
Yeah.
O'Reilly. Yeah. Right when we first met up, we were like showing each other like pictures of art and like from our journal and stuff. And I saw that he had this script in there, this magical alphabet. And I was like, whoa. And I'm like I love puzzles and, breaking codes and stuff. And I was like, whoa, let me see that picture. And like, was able to like crack his alphabet in about a day. And he was like pretty impressed. Or I at least cracked like half of the letters, I would say. And he like clued me in on some of the other ones. And so that definitely like sparked the idea. And then I think I used his alphabet for a while. And then at some point just like created my own, which has been really cool for like spell work or intentional work, or just, trying to manifest things into being, the old Presto Manifesto. Intentions. I would suggest to anyone who's interested to invent their own magical alphabet, just go out there, look at the symbols, pick some that are meaningful to you and go from there. It's a really cool, I don't know, brain exercise or connection. Definitely. Well,
and it also makes your brain like think in a different way about the image that you're seeing too. It's like you pull a card, especially when you first get the deck and you don't really know it yet. And you're like, okay, everyone's sitting around a campfire and this half moon looks like a C. And this like, triangle line that looks maybe like an air element sign, like that could be an A. And so you're like, your brain is working to understand it with like images rather than with like, depending on the English language, which is so limiting. So it's like you're drawing meaning from, just the images and the symbols, even before you know what it says.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, and what is magic really other than, putting meaning to symbols?
Yeah.
That's sigil work in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So what is magic to you, and what kinds of magic have you focused on besides just Presto Manifesto, which is very fun too? But
I've definitely read a lot about alchemy. That one is definitely one that has called me. And that idea of like psychological alchemy, I had another really important teacher growing up, named Rabbi Dean, who is this Jewish mystic. I met him when I was about 19, and he taught me about meditation and mysticism and like, healing with intention. And yeah, so that I definitely got into the meditation side as well. Like I feel like the first time I really was like, whoa, magic is real, was I was with him in his apartment in San Francisco, and he had run down the stairs for something. He lived on the 3rd story of this apartment building, and he had gone downstairs and he like took a tumble and like knocked his arm and hurt it pretty bad. And he came back up to the apartment and was like, Laura, I need you to be chill. I just took a spill down the stairs. I'm gonna meditate. And he meditated for a while, and then he was like, okay, actually, can you help me? Can we meditate together and like help me with my arm? And I was like, okay, yeah. And so it was like a pretty intense like meditation session of just like, creating a healing space. And then he like felt this like pop and this huge sense of relief. And and then later that night we were cooking dinner, and he, tiny San Francisco apartment, he like bumped his arm into the wall because we're like 2 people in a tiny apartment, and it swelled back up, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the hospital. I was like, word. And so we went to the hospital, and he wound up getting an x-ray, and the doctor was like, oh, I can see that you've broken your arm here before. He's like, no, I've never broken my arm before. And the doctor was like, oh yeah, I can see on this x-ray that like you have broken your arm here, but it looks like you had a really good doctor because it's like a perfect heel. And I was like, God. What? And I was like, okay, magic's real. Intention is real.
Oh my gosh.
Intention has power. There is more than what meets the eye to this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that was
the doctor had no space for Yeah. And like the doctor would have no space for believing that you could actually heal with intention, meditation, and like, that thoughtfulness and that process within a matter of a few hours, but
Yeah.
you all were like, oh shit, that's so cool.
It's wild.
Amazing. Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah.
So that was,
Kind of
how did you meet
blew
that teacher? How did you meet that?
and
What was that?
that's what blew my mind open and blew the world of magic open for me. So I was like, oh, all right.
And then you weren't surprised when other magical stuff started rolling in your life.
And there's always kind of like that surprise of like, wow, it's still real. Like I feel like that surprise never goes away necessarily, but yeah. It never necessarily goes away, but it is, I don't know, it's like reassuring every time that it does work.
Totally.
And forget that it works too. And then like you'll be reflecting on your life and be like, whoa, I just accomplished everything that I set out to accomplish. That's really cool.
Yeah. So how did you meet that Rabbi? What's his name?
Rabbi Dean.
Rabbi Dean.
We met at Burning Man.
Oh, nice. Cool. So you've done the rainbow gatherings and Burning Man and lots of travel.
Yeah. Yeah. We met at Burning Man, and then his brother lived in my hometown. And he went and lived with his brother, and so we had got to spend time together. And he was such an important teacher in terms of like mysticism and philosophy and just kind of, he was like that wizard who like peels the curtain back and is like, there's more than meets the eye.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Are there any other teachers? You had your acting teacher that was super influential. Are there any other teachers that,
or books
or things that guided you that are prevalent?
Those were the two main teachers. Well, and then like my band, I feel like I've learned so much about being a human and learning how to communicate and all that good life stuff with them. And then books, the Tao of Physics is up there. That's a really cool one. The Secret, what's it called? The Secret History of Magic. And I am forgetting the author's name. I feel like a jerk, but that was a really cool one. That was just like a history of magic and just really laid it out there and made it obvious that like talking about how like we live in a time where the worldview is dominated by materialism, where it's like, if I can see it and I can touch it, then it's real. And then this was like, but there's another way, what if you have to think it first for it to be real? And yeah, so just laid out the magical bones.
Cool. So why don't we go ahead and do a little reading? Are you ready for that?
Is it like possible to do a reading for our listeners, like for a large group like that, where we're like, what do our listeners need to hear for their greatest good, for their greatest healing, since that's like the intention sort of behind you making this like whole divination set and book? Like, what lessons do our listeners need to hear? Or do you think it would be better if it was like for us or something?
No,
what do you think? Okay, cool.
I'm about the collective. Yeah.
Great.
You guys want to pick a card, or do you want me to pick a card?
I think you should pick it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll pick it.
Yes.
Let's see. Pew, pew, pew. All right. collective healing.
Mhm.
Ooh, I got the river.
Oh.
So much. I was super lucky to grow up in Colorado, and there was a river literally right outside our house. And man, I feel like I learned just as much from that river as I have from anything else.
That's really cool. Yeah.
All right. Shall I read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the story. It's way too hot for life right now. Wiping dripping sweat. For real. River time? Damn, I was thinking ice cream, but yes, both. You grab some hobo combos, ice cream and beer, and head to the secret swim spot. It's 1,000 times better than being surrounded by concrete. The water's cool and sweet. The dog plays stick as y'all crack cold drinks. Here, life flows by. A metaphor of the river's journey, flowing forth at the source of a little Smoky Mountain creek, Blue Ridge Mountain trickle, drop by drop. Streams meet in a confluence of rainwater and snowmelt. Just around the river bend are tall mountains that hug the river tight, spinning out eddies and white water rapids. The raging river relaxes into a wide floodplain, meandering lazy down into a delta out to sea. It's the journey of a lifetime. You throw in a handful of flowers that swirl away like a memory.
Oh.
First.
Yes, that's so
And
beautiful.
the DIY, do it yourself,
Mhm.
the exercise. We get stuck like a leaf spinning round and around an eddy. The situations we can't let go of, painful memories we're not ready to process, toxic patterns we can't swim away from. I've got it under control. It's fine. But is it though? We cling to suffering because it's familiar. We understand it, so we're not afraid of it. Change can be so terrifying, we'd rather be stressed out, staying in abusive situations where we sacrifice our own happiness rather than feel the relief of releasing something awful. We invent stories to keep ourselves stuck. I can't, I'll never, I shouldn't. Yeah, those ones. So instead of learning to let go, we hold on tighter. But trying to control life is like holding water in your hands. You might get a few, trying to control life is like holding water in your hands to drink. You might get a few sips, but wouldn't it be easier to swill straight from the stream? Grab your journal, take some big gulps of air, and let's work on moving obstacles out of the way from your flow of happiness. Start by describing a dream you let die or a big regret you have. Think about what story allowed you to walk away from what you love. And now rewrite that story with a different ending. You chase that dream to the end of the rainbow. Write about or imagine yourself succeeding. If you imagine it, close your eyes and see the details. And now let's dig deeper. What causes the most stress in your life? Write about your reaction to it. What you do, what you say, what you think and feel. Brainstorm better ways to respond. Brain map ways you could alleviate or dissolve that stress. What are you able to change? If you can't change something, can you let it go, even in small ways? Name the fears that keep you from moving forward. Dig deep. Get real. Whoa. Breathe. Breathe. Amazing work. Facing our fears is hard, but doing so can feel like taking rocks out of our backpacks. A lighter load makes it easier to accept ourselves. Tell yourself you love you and that you're doing great. We're all only exactly where we're at, and we're in it together. Finish with a river meditation. Take a silent moment of gratitude for everything that's flowing smoothly. Ta-da!
feel like that was such a great card, and such great. I love hearing your voice reading it because I hear your voice shines and comes through in this writing. And so it's really cool to have you read it because it's like I can hear your voice when I'm reading it.
Oh.
So, thank you so much for that. So was that river like inspired from your home river, or is it just sort of like a general river
That's
vibe?
one of the I drew. That was like a draw it in the moment card.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, I was in Pittsburgh with Jessica and Carly, and we went down to the river, and yeah, I was like sitting behind them and sketching them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Which river was
Yeah. Oh man.
the Monongahela or the Allegheny or the Ohio?
It was kind of like, do you guys want to go to the river? And I was like, yes. So
I've spent a lot more time in Pittsburgh than you have. So I like
love Pittsburgh. I've like popped in here and there, but
there are a lot of really good river spots. For
yeah,
sure.
totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, man, there's even just towns that I'm like, what was the name of that town? I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you hop out somewhere and you're like, you have to ask someone at the gas station, like, what state are we in?
That's I did have to ask that one time. The person just looked at me like, what planet are you from?
For sure.
I just gotten off the train. It was the days before smartphones. There was,
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
I did not know which side of the state line I was on.
It happens for sure. Yeah. Or you wake up, you're in the back of a school bus and you wake up like hours later and you're like, really though, like where are we? But
Totally.
thank you for that reading.
Yeah.
So welcome. I hope it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do people like hand put together?
Sorry, you cut out. What did you say?
So where do you get one of these? You only have like a limited number of copies, right?
I do, yeah. I'm gonna be printing more in the next couple of months, but yeah, for right now, I just have the first editions. I made a website because we live in the future. So that's Lora Galora, LORAGALORA .square.site.
Cool.
And so that's my site where you can order it. You could also just order. You could hit me up through Instagram at Galora Galore. I'm in the process of starting a Patreon because the future, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, if there's any musicians listening, I have a songbook website that I started years ago that has a pretty good plethora of folk punk songs on it and just songs from the road. And that's Sexy Flail, FLAIL, family.wordpress.com. So yeah, those are my deets.
Awesome. Sweet. Yeah. I love that you've archived all these really amazing songs. I feel like you're good at that, at archiving and like, I don't know, writing it all down. And I feel like this book is a testament to that, and the Sexy Flail fam site is a testament to that too, because a lot of the songs and a lot of these like experiences are like kind of ephemeral. They kind of like, I don't know, the songs,
Totally.
if you didn't hear it in person and you didn't write down in your journal, then like, and you didn't grok it, then that song's gone, like when are you going to see that person that you met on the side of the road or the side of the track? Like, when are you going to see them next?
Totally.
So
You lose a music a songbook journal, or I've also like just been going through old songbooks from the past too, and been like, whoa, that song, that time, that place. I don't know.
Yeah.
So magic.
It is so magic for sure.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for being on the show, Lora.
Yeah, thank you so much
for having me, guys. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's so good to see you too. And thanks for Hobomancy. I love your art, baby.
I love my art too, and I'm so glad that it's finding homes out in the world.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks again, Lora. Bye.
Bye.